everybody, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Amy. I am a witch. This is the Shadowed Path, where we talk about witchcraft from my point of view. That could be my new intro, guys. Been working on it. Before we jump into the video, I just want to take a second to give a big shout out and a huge thank you to our newest patron, David. Thank you so much for supporting me, David. It means the world. I've gotten kind of a surprising, I guess maybe it's not surprising, a lot of questions when I mention that I work with blood sorcery. I get a lot of questions about menstrual blood, and so today I am going to experiment with preparing my own while also answering some of these questions / tackling some of the misconceptions. So I have scissors and tweezers and a stainless steel mortar and pestle. It's not stainless steel. It's a, what do people cook in? Cast iron. Cast iron, mortar and pestle. I have a salt jar, which is specific to menstrual salt / blood salt, and I'll tell you about why that is in a minute. I have some menstrual elixir that I've been drying / saving, curing. I'm also going to put tissues down on my tabletop to catch anything that falls. We're just going to tackle this. So I'm going to tell you what's going on, and then while I'm working on my crafts, I will talk about how to use and when to use menstrual blood in general, and then you can see how I'm prepping it for myself and storing it and all of that. So I guess we'll just get into it. If you're interested in my point of view on witchcraft and you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe and hit that bell button. Also, if you like the video, like it, and if you know of somebody who would find it useful, then also share it. It helps my channel out a ton. And check out my Patreon. I guess I'll start with this one. This one's the newest. So I have two kinds of, I guess, like two, I hope this doesn't count as graphic content. Forgive me, YouTube. I have two jars because this is from like multiple periods, but essentially what I did was I took pink Himalayan sea salt and put it in the bottom of a jar, and then I stuck a my used feminine hygiene products in the jar with the sea salt with the lid open for a little while, a few days, so that it could dry out, and then I took it out and I put a tissue in the bottom and put the menstrual product back in on top of the tissue. It may have been with new salt. At any rate, so that it wasn't touching the salt, but I did it so that it could finish drying for, you know what, I don't think that this one's ready. Oh yeah, it is. For like a month. So now I'm gonna take the tissue, my trash can. Okay, so it's just important to note that this needs to be sanitary, and I'm sure that I will get some criticisms for sanitation purposes, but just so you know, I wash my hands before. I'm not touching my face. Ooh, I have a trash can right next to me. My dog insists on sniffing. I'm using tweezers and scissors, and I will run them through the dishwasher when I'm done. Also, this mortar and pestle is specifically for this purpose and won't be used for anything else, so no cross-contamination. So, since I took the feminine hygiene tampon out of this jar, also it's really important to try and store in glass. If you can't, then that is okay. But you should try. You should always try to store in glass if you can. I need to add this to my other salt jar. Oh boy. I save small jars, like when I have jam or something like that. I save the salt. I save small jars and run them through the dishwasher, like if I have jam or olives or something like that, because glass jars are super useful. Glass containers are super useful, especially for witchcraft, and so I try to like upcycle, reuse things. Okay, so this is my cumulative Himalayan sea salt from infused with menstrual blood, menstrual elixir. And I keep that. I'm going to use this jar to put the ground up menstrual elixir in, so I'm just going to set that aside. Now, I have never prepared this before. I haven't done this yet. I will leave a link down below to the book that I referenced when I started collecting in this way. This is specifically the specifically the menstrual blood that I caught in might be a total fail of an episode. I got the instructions for this from a book, and I will put that book in the description. I know that this looks gross, and that is why I'm going to wash my hands promptly afterward, and I'm going to run my utensils through the dishwasher. What was the point of that? Remember when you guys were like, show us something that you fail at? Well, this is a good example of something that I fail at. So the idea is that you're supposed to be able to grind up the bits into like a powder, sort of, and then use that in incense and like charms, spell bags, that sort of thing. So I think what I'm actually going to do is just chop this up real small and put it in the jar that way. I don't know if this counts as fully dry. Maybe that's what's up. I did wonder if I was going to run into some issues grinding this up in a mortar and pestle, but you know, when people write books and tell me how to do things, they're supposed to be experts. I believe them. I probably just didn't read it correctly, to be honest. Oh, it does look like it's working a little bit. But the thing with them... So this may or may not work out. I wonder if I read it wrong. I might have read it wrong. This will still work. It'll work for like amulets and stuff, but it won't work for making incense. Well, it might. You're supposed to be able to like turn this into like a powder. And I did wonder how that was gonna go. What with how like we're dealing with cotton, and like I use organic cotton menstrual products. The reason you would do this, the reason you'd collect it this way, is because your blood or sacred elixir or whatever you want to call it is, you know, in limited supply, and you don't want to waste it. You don't want to lose any. If you do sorcery and you use it for things, then you got to get it where you can. I just pulled like the little string out and got rid of it. Okay, yeah, so this does get really fibrous. I think maybe the mortar and pestle wasn't the way to go with this, but I'm basically tearing it apart and turning it into like blood cotton candy. I also have to try not to breathe this. So here's the thing, sanitation. Sanitation. This is supposed to be one of the most like powerful forms to get, but it's also like a free like fountain of resources, right? Like if you're going through this every month, it might as well be put to good use. Whoever designed humans, in my opinion, just could have done a better job. I frankly want to take my uterus out. So I have to collect it all now. So I've kind of like shredded it, sort of. This is what it looks like. And I'm going to try again to grind it. We'll see if that works. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to leave it shredded and put it in the jar. Move on to the next bit. This can be used for charm bags, to make incense, anything you can use a powdered form. The other thing is, like, the reason you're grinding it up is, like, again, like I said, you don't want to waste it. You know what? I think it would work to grind this up if I just did a little at a time. So I'm actually not going to prep it all at once. I'm just going to, like, pre-prep it. Yeah, because there's some in there. Partly you want to do this because you don't want to waste it. But on that note, you also don't need a lot. You really don't have to use much at all. If you have animals at home, bear in mind that this is going to smell like flesh to them. So if they are carnivorous or omnivorous, they're going to want this crap. So if you only need a little bit of the wet stuff, then why would you need a lot of the dry stuff? You don't. That is why you powderize it. Okay, I think I drove my point home a billion times with that already. Why menstrual blood? Well, it's powerful as fuck. It's basically a free resource. It holds feminine energy. Males, people of the male sex, not gender, but sex, can also use menstrual blood. They just have to get it from somebody else. If you were assigned male at birth, and or you're, for whatever reason, if your body doesn't shed baby making menstrual waste, whatever that reason happens to be, whether it's due to your assigned sex or biological sex or anything else at all, it's okay. It's not like it's not superior. It's not like your stuff's not going to work just because you don't have this type. If you really want this type, you can get it from somebody. Ask somebody to provide you with some. However you want to handle that is up to you, but like you can get your hands on it, or you can just use like what your body has to offer you, and it's not a big deal. It's not like superior or anything. It's a resource. It's a free resource, so not using it would be a waste. It can be very powerful for use when you're dealing with connections to other people, and also when you're summoning. There's a lot of reasons to use menstrual blood. I would say reasons not to use it. Ways not to use it would be ingesting. You never, ever, ever, ever put your blood in somebody's food or drink. That is not something you do. And I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to ever insinuate that that is what should be done. It is unsanitary. It can carry disease. It's not something that you do to somebody. Now, whether or not you use your blood in sorcery that targets or affects other people is none of my business, but you're never going to catch me telling somebody that it's okay to put their biological in somebody's like tea or something, because it's not. Quite frankly, this is messy. So this isn't even my favorite way to collect menstrual blood. I have a jar of it in my freezer. If you menstruate and you use menstrual cups, you can collect it that way. Put it in a freezer safe glass container, label it, and keep it in the freezer. It'll keep in the freezer as long as anything keeps in the freezer, really. I think it's, up to like 4 years or something like that it'll keep in the freezer. It's certainly less messy. It doesn't sound like it, but it really is, and I'm a good example of that right now. I'm just here to tell you how to collect this stuff and to tell you what not to use it for. I mean, especially when you could just put it in an amulet or a bag or incense or something, like, where is a person's mind at if they're trying to feed something to somebody? Like, that's what I want to know. Actually, I don't want to know. So as you can see, I'm just like chopping it up, and then I put it in here. I'm always messier than I expect to be. Look, I just thought I'd test out this method, you know? I happened to use a pad and a couple of tampons recently, and I was like, I don't want to let that go to waste, and I thought I would test this out, but I really do need to figure out a better way to dry it, and I'm wondering if, like, maybe taking some of the liquid stuff and pouring it over salt and leaving it out and letting it dry would be better. Witchy prepping is kind of a weird thing. Like, I'm usually not the kind of person that spends, like, a really long time. See how there's, like, a bunch of cotton in here? It's okay. It's not a problem. It's just that, like, if I burn this in a cauldron or something, I'm going to have to be sure that I'm paying attention to, like, whether or not it's safe. I expect this will be pretty flammable, like a wick, so I would only use like a little bit, and then maybe, you know, honestly, this might be a really good sort of thing to bind into a wick. Stick it in your freaking candle. And no, I don't think the string from the tampon would work as a wick for a candle, because candle wicks are... That went pretty well. Candle wicks, so I think if you just need like to prep a little bit to use for something, then you can take it out of your jar that you've got your little mountain in, and that way you don't have to like get your utensils out every time, right? So you can just take a little bit out and then grind it up, and I think that that would probably go a lot better. Maybe put some salt or some herbs or whatever it is that you want to mix in with it, grind it up that way, and I think that that would probably work fine. Is the bowl part the mortar or the pestle? I think the bowl part is the mortar. Tampons are disgusting. Honestly, like, I'm not even freaked out about the fact that I'm touching my own blood right now, and I feel like I'm probably gonna get some backlash for this video. What's freaking me out, or what I don't like, what I think is gross about tampons, is tampons, period. They haven't gotten any better in the last, like, 20 years. I've been menstruating for 18 years. Pads and tampons have barely changed. Like, functionally, they haven't changed. The packaging changes, the brands change, sizes sometimes change, but functionally, these things have not changed at all in the last almost 2 decades for sure. So that tells me that the effort isn't being applied. I also prefer menstrual cups, and there are a ton of those now. There used to only be like the one kind, the Diva cup or whatever. I just find these things archaic and gross, but I'm thankful that I have them. I recognize feminine hygiene products are hard for people to get their hands on in a lot of places, a lot of parts of the world, and you know, if people don't have money, it's ridiculously expensive too. If y'all don't know about the pink tax, look it up. It's awful. So that's it. That's all of it. I'm gonna have this like jar full of this stuff that I can use the next time. You know, I would just say if there's any like a lot of like extra cotton in there, then just be sure that the chunk that you pull out does have the dried menstrual elixir in it, or else what good is it gonna do? Okay, so this is great, and this will keep for ages. Like, it's dry, it's preserved, and there's a little bit of salt in there. I think you're supposed to try and keep it like separate from the salt, and like keep it from canoodling in there. But listen, like, witchcraft is messy. This shit is messy. Obviously it's messy. I made like a mess. Sorcery is messy, and I'm never gonna pretend that it's not. It always ends up looking and being messier than you expect. Let's just put it that way. I mean, this is just an example of collecting materials when and where you can get them. You know, if you're outside and you're collecting like feathers and sticks and stones, and then you save them for later, and then you use them in a ritual, like, this isn't any different. It's just that this specifically pertains to blood sorcery. And like, look how full this jar is. This used to be an olive jar. It's almost 6 ounces. So I'm gonna say there's at least 5 ounces of this like blood cotton in here. This could last for years. Yes, this is a finite resource, but if you're only using a little bit, you only need a drop's worth for anything that you're doing. So this blood cotton, menstrual cotton, it'll last me ages. So there's this, but there's also the salt, right? So the salt soaked up a lot of the moisture from the menstrual fluid. So this salt has also been infused with blood, so you can use this in things as well. I'm basically just trying not to waste anything, you know? I use leftover jars, I use leftover candles, I like remelt my candle wax and I use things over, and I guess that's what I was trying to get at, is that like this stuff isn't pretty, it's real life. I actually just recently made a post on Instagram where I took a picture of part of my altar / witching shelf, and it looks unorganized, it doesn't look pretty, it's just very functional, it's dusty. It's not the sort of thing you would normally take pictures of or like want to see pictures of, but that was kind of my point, is that like while I love the witchy aesthetic just as much as the next guy, witchcraft isn't an aesthetic. It is a part of your life. It's a part of my life. It's important for me that it is practical. It's important for me that it makes sense. In order for it to be practical, I have to use what I have around. And a lot of people don't have like a lot of money to spend on things. And even if you do, like the price of something isn't going to make it more potent. The power comes from you and the ritual itself. It really wouldn't matter if this was like the most beautiful apothecary jar ever, or if it's just, you know, this cheap one that I have that has a lid. This one had olives. I have some that used to be like spice jars, and I mean it's about what you have on hand and what you can do with it. It doesn't matter if it's fancy or specifically for the purpose that it was intended. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. This is my first time doing this. I've been saving it for a few months, so thanks for hanging out with me in my laboratory. While I practiced, the sun went down while I was talking to you, so it probably looks, the lighting I'm sure has changed. I apologize. But yeah, so this was a learning experience for all of us. I don't know if this is gonna be my favorite way, but we will explore other ways later in other videos. I'm gonna put the book that I learned some of these methods from in the description in case you guys want to read it. If you have a way that works great for you to collect dried elixir, let us know. Leave it in the comments. I don't have time to answer them all, but I read a lot of the comments, and it's also really helpful for all of you to be able to help each other as well. I only have my experience that I can lend to a conversation, so there are a lot of really useful experiences that all of you have had you can share with each other, which is amazing. And I'd also really love to learn some more methods for collecting dry elixir, so don't forget to like the video, share it with somebody if you think they'll find it useful. Subscribe if you want to see more witching content from my perspective. Hit the little bell icon so you know when I publish videos, because I'm inconsistent as fuck. And consider supporting me on Patreon. There are links for everything everywhere, and I hope you have a blessed and beautiful day.